If you end up in hell, like just try to have a good positive outlook about it, you know? Try to look on the bright side.
Who has a recap for the sexy chapter?
We met a lot of people, a lot of classics and chill favorites like Achilles and Helen, and they were getting tortured with wind, I believe.
They're like spinning a sun, and then Dante's like, "Oh, you loved so much. Oh, I'm so sorry for your love." And then he faints because they loved so much, but then they end up here.
Yeah, Dante faints a lot.
Dante faints.
Oh, and there was this couple talking about Lancelot and Galahad, and
oh yeah,
and how they had a courtly love, and
Galahad.
they died because they cheated with their husbands on each other.
And Dante's like, "Oh no."
And it was like a big news story at the time. It would be like a celebrity couple.
Yeah, they were the celebrity couple.
Hey, what's a celebrity? Does anybody know the name of any celebrities?
Yeah, honestly.
But it'd be like
if Dax Shepard and Kristen Bell, that's a celebrity couple, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that
Dax
was
Shepard.
Yeah, so if Kristen Bell instead married Dax Shepard, but then made out with his brother, that's what this would be.
And then was like, no, it's like Lancelot and Gwen.
Actually, it's like if Dax Shepard had a brother and Kristen Bell thought that she was getting married to his brother, but then actually she wasn't. That was just a stand-in because Dax Shepard in this scenario is also like old and sickly and can't make the trip to go get married. And then she gets there and he's kind of gross. And she's like, well, I don't like that. I thought I was marrying this other guy who's actually more attractive. And then she didn't do anything, but then they were studying romance together. And then they were like,
who are these people? What are you talking about? I have no idea what you're talking about. Who's Dax Shepard and Kristen Bell?
I think we made this more confusing.
You know.
Anyway,
it
was like a tabloid story of the time, so Dante figured people would know about it. But like Dante's gonna be really moved by it because Dante also has like weird beliefs about love because he's like simping for Beatrice all day, every day.
I would love this book so much more if like the Dante character was blindsided by the fact that Beatrice was in like the 8th circle of hell for some reason. And I went through like this real struggle being like, oh my gosh, the angel is not an angel and all of that.
That would be really like, you would have understood that Dante processed his emotions for Beatrice throughout his life if that happened. But since it didn't happen, you know that Dante died a simp, so.
Dante died a simp. Yeah, so Dante talked to these two lovers and was like, oh, this love is so beautiful and powerful and strong, and it sucks that they got murdered. And then he faints again, and then he wakes up. And when he wakes up, they are going into the 3rd circle.
Oh, yeah.
Which is the circle of gluttony.
Make it rain, baby.
On my return to consciousness, which closed before the kindred couple's piteous case, which utterly confounded me with grief, new torments all around me I behold, and new tormented ones where'er I move, where'er I turn and wheresoe'er I gaze. In the 3rd circle am I, that of rain, eternal, cursed, cold, and burdensome. Its measure and quality are never new. Coarse hail and snow and dirty-colored water through the dark air are ever pouring down, and foully smells the ground receiving them. A wild beast, Cerberus, uncouth and cruel, is barking with 3 throats as would a dog, over the people that are there submerged. Red eyes he hath, a dark and greasy beard, a belly big, and talons on his hands. He claws the spirits, flays and quarters them. The rainfall causes them to howl like dogs. With one side they make shelter for the other, oft do the poor profaners turn about. When Cerberus, the mighty worm, perceived us, his mouth he opened, showing us his fangs. Nor had he any limb that he kept still. So they're walking through the gross, muddy, slushy, wet, disgusting land, and they see Cerberus, and he's really gross too. And all the souls in the circle are just like half submerged in the mud, and Cerberus is just like beating them and ripping them apart all the time. And it's really interesting here because we have Cerberus, who it describes as barking as a dog would. So it kind of implies that Cerberus may not actually be a dog, but just, as in pop culture, but just kind of like a creature that defies description, but sounds like a dog. But
the closest thing we get is a dog.
But then they say now the spirits that are being punished here are also howling like dogs. So there's like no distinction between this like weird animal that's like torturing them and the people being tortured.
They call him a worm, but I think I remember that worm could be used as like creature.
Singleton says that since in the Bible the worm often symbolizes decay, basically it's being used to describe Cerberus as something that exists within a realm of decay. And then later in the Inferno, the word is again used to describe Satan. So Satan is also called a worm.
This is, I don't know, like the modern definition of worm really downplays this scariness of these things.
So Cerberus saw Virgil and Dante, and he's like, all of a sudden he's like starts barking and starts growling, and his like whole body's shaking, and it's really scary. So, Virgil's got to step in because we know Dante, when he gets too scared, starts to faint. So Virgil's going to take care of it. My leader then stretched out his open palms and took some earth, and with his fists well filled, he threw it down into the greedy throats. And like a dog that barking yearns for food, and when he comes to bite it is appeased, since only to devour it doth he strain and fight, even such became those filthy faces of demon Cerberus, who thundering stuns the spirits so they would fain be deaf. So Virgil's like, I know how to handle this Cerberus fellow. I'm just going to scoop up a bunch of this gross mud and just like shove it down his throats. And then he's going to be happy because he's getting to eat. Really vivid description where they talk about like slime and mud and filth. And, if we think about the gluttons who in life just like enjoyed all the good things and had no cares in the world and like didn't stop to think about, whether that money would be better spent doing other things, or whether they should have been like focused on saving their souls as opposed to just enjoying life. Now they're just like stuck in all this grossness, and they can only eat this gross slime, and they're constantly being beaten by Cerberus, who's also like right in there with them, wallowing in filth.
So like, why is I never understood this part. Why is Cerberus here?
So a lot of the people who are responsible for punishing are like share traits with the people that they're punishing. So Cerberus is described as like very like greedy and gluttonous and has 3 mouths. So he's constantly eating. And then in mythology, like the way that you would, the way that you would pacify him was like feeding him all these like delicious treats, right? So he kind of represents that. And here in hell, it's just like a little bit twisted where he's like, I'm here too, but I'm the boss.
I'm the boss here. I'm king of gluttony.
King of gluttony. That would be a good anime.
That's it. I'm just basically already an anime.
Yeah. So if you like some of the other like mythological characters that showed up in previous chapters like fit with whatever the sins were that were being punished. Jesus. Over the shades the heavy rain beats down. We then were passing, as our feet we set, upon their unreal bodies which seemed real. They each and all were lying on the ground, excepting one, which rose and sat upright when it perceived us pass in front of it.
Oh, thou that through this hell art being led.
It said to me,
recall me if thou canst, for thou before I unmade wast made.
And out to it.
The anguish thou art in, perchance, withdraws thee from a memory so. It doth not seem that thee I ever saw. But tell me who thou art, that in so painful a place art set, and to such punishment that none, though greater, so repulsive is.
Basically, they're walking through this gross pile of mud, but they're gonna walking on top of the souls because all of the souls are just like wallowing in the mud like pigs. So Dante and Virgil are just like stepping on their backs. As there's one dude in this whole place that's sitting up and is like, "Oh, hey Dante, I know you." And Dante's like, "I don't know you, bud. I never met you before in my life." The soul is going to respond to Dante.
Good old
And
Dante. Die down, which is so full of envy and that the bag overflows already. Only when I was in the peaceful life. Choco, you townsmen used to call me then. For my injurious fault of gluttony. I'm broken, as thou seest, by the rain. Nor yet am I, sad soul, the only one. For all these here are subject, for like fault unto like pain.
Thereat he spoke no more.
Thy trouble, Choco,
I replied to him,
so burdens me that it invites my tears. But tell me, if thou canst, to what will come the citizens of our divided town, if any one therein is just, and tell me the reason why such discord hath assailed her.
And he to me then,
After struggling long, they'll come to the bloodshed, and the boorish party will drive the other out with much offense. Then, afterward, the latter needs must fall within 3 suns, and the other party rise, by help of one who now is on the fence. Oh. A long time will it fold its forehead up, keeping the outer under grievous weights. However, it weep therefore, and be ashamed. 2 men are just, but are not heated there. The 3 sparks that have set men's hearts on fire are overweening pride, envy, and greed.
Herewith he closed his tear-inspiring speech. And I to him,
I'd have thee teach me still, and grant the favor of some further talk. Farinata and Teaio, who so worthy were, Jacopo, Rosticucci, Arrigo, and Mosca, and the ones who were set on doing good. Tell me where these are, and let me know of them. For great desire constraineth me to learn if heaven now sweeten or hell poison them.
and he,
Among the blackest souls are these, a different fault weighs toward the bottom each. If thou descend so far, thou mayest behold them. But when in the sweet world thou art again, recall me, prithee, unto others' minds. I tell no more, nor further answer thee.
his fixed eyes thereupon he turned askance. A while he looked at me, then bowed his head and fell therewith among the other blind. Before we get to what Virgil has to say, I want to kind of clarify everything Choco has to say. So first, Choco, it means like hog or swine. So it's a very unflattering nickname that this guy had in life, not just here in hell. So he was like, everybody knew him as a glutton. Everybody was like, this guy's just like always eating. He's so like whatever. And he acts like a pig. He basically tells Dante, I lived in Florence. I was around when you were born. So like, I know you and I feel like you should have known me. And Dante's like, I don't.
I feel like you should know.
You, but well, since you're from Florence, tell me what happened. Like, what's going to happen with the whole political situation? What's going to happen with all my buds? And so Choco shares a lot of information, and more or less, it seems like all of this is information that Dante has because it has already happened in the real world. But because Dante's writing this before all of these things happened, you know, he like goes to hell. So these people are making predictions as opposed to just saying things that already happened that Dante already knows about. Dante asks what goes on with Florence. Choco's like, oh, you know, like there's a lot of issues there. There's a lot of like conspiracy and a lot of corruption, and there's so much like envy and greed throughout the whole town. And it's basically what's going to happen is that there's going to be these 2 parties. One is going to kick the other one out. He basically like tells a whole political story of what happens before Dante was sent to exile, which if you need more information, you can watch the origin story of Dante video. What's it called? Intro to the Inferno.
Yeah, intro, background, something.
That'll clarify a lot of this. There's a lot of political stuff. None of it is super, super important for understanding the Inferno, but it's just kind of nice to know to have that context.
Right.
The main thing that you need to understand is he's like predicting the future and basically just describes what happens politically for Dante. And then Dante's like, okay, but what about my buds? Like all these people, Farinata, Tegiaio, Rosticucci, Arrigo, Mosca, like these were all my buds, and they all thought they were doing the right thing along with me. On Florence trying to do something good and making, the world a better place.
Mhm.
And Choco goes, oh yeah, they're way deep in hell. They'll see me eventually. And then he's like, tell people that you saw me and like make me immortal by telling people about me. Even though like if Dante goes up into the world and was like, hey, I met this gluttonous dude and he's in hell, like that wouldn't really look too favorably for him. Everybody who's stuck in hell recognizes that the only chance of any sort of immortality they have that's like anything better than what they're dealing with now is if Dante goes up into the world and tells people about them. Then he's like, okay, I'm not talking to you anymore.
It's just so dramatic. And like, you just went in and out of conversation so much.
Yeah, like probably talking to Dante about all the crappy stuff that happens in Florence is like the most fun he's had in years.
It's like, oh, that was great. We're done.
He's just rolling around in mud and eating mud. Like, that's not that fun. So I guess getting to tell somebody that you meet, like, all the bad things that's going to happen in life, it's like, well, this is interesting.
And also just the way he talks, he clearly was ready for this. He's been counting this moment, planning the speech.
He has so much to say, and he's like, I'm going to tell you this and this and this, and I'm going to tell you about this, and now I'm not going to talk anymore ever to anybody.
To anybody.
So now Choco's being quiet. He's not talking anymore. And Virgil is now talking to Dante. Then said my leader,
you take it back, Dante.
Oh, that makes sense. I was like, oh, go on. He'll not wake again on this side of the angel trumpet sound. What time the hostile podesta shall come, each soul will find again its dismal tomb. Each will take on again its flesh and shape, and hear what through eternity resounds.
We thus pass through with slowly moving steps the filthy mixture and of the shades and rain, talking a little of the future life. Because of which I said,
these torments, teacher, after the final sentence, will they grow or less become, or burn the same as now?
And he to me,
return thou to thy science, which holdeth that the more a thing is perfect, so much the more it feels of weal or woe. Although this cursed folk shall never more arrive at true perfection, it expects to be more perfect after than before.
As in a circle, round that road we went, speaking at greater length than I repeat, and came into a place where one descends. There found we Plutus, the great enemy.
The great enemy.
In this last conversation, Dante's like, Virgil's like, well, he's now going to stop talking forever until the final judgment day. And Dante's like, well, what happens then? Like, what happens on judgment day? And Virgil's like, oh, they like become humans again and become what they were in life and like wander around and find like a new spot. And that's their spot for all of eternity. And Dante's like, well, but like, where do they go? Does it get worse for them or better for them? And Virgil's like, well, it gets better for them. Like they become better because they've been punished. So they've kind of learned their lesson. And so they get better treatment, but because they still know that they're not ever going to be perfect, they're still mad about it. And it'll never feel like, because they're more aware of what they're missing and more like in tune with that, then they're more upset and it hurts them more that they don't get to go to heaven.
Like this video if you
Cerberus. If you're a glutton.
Comment down below what your favorite kind of flavor of mud is. Either way, this chapter's got you covered. Subscribe for future videos where Murad is 1/4 of the video.
Yes, which is a lot healthier, and everyone appreciates that proportion.
Much healthier balance.
Much healthier balance. I mean, like, the more people there are, the more grounded it is. The less people there are, the dumber I become.